All right. Well, welcome to New Hampshire Peace Action's annual meeting. Thank you for being here. I'm Janet Zeller. As Will said, I'm a member of the board of directors. We got a full agenda for you. And let's see, Will, do you have our agenda available?
Yeah, I just posted it in the chat.
Okay, it's in the chat, folks. Will is going to catch us up on New Hampshire Peace Action's work for this past year. Then we'll look ahead with an update on our New Hampshire Peace Action Strategic Plan. Hear the financial report, hold board member elections, and any resolutions will be shared at that time. We're going to take a short break, and then the presentation with Combatants for Peace. We begin our meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For most of us, just a second, I lost. Okay. For most of us, we live on ancestral homelands of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land and waterways that they have been stewarding throughout the generations. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore the wholeness of the earth and all her peoples. Will you take it from here?
I sure will. So going up, thank you, Janet, for hosting us today. And before I go too far into what we've been up to for the last year or so, I want to talk about two losses that our community is experiencing right now. First, you'll notice that Doreen, who is our office manager, isn't with us today. A parent's heart is not designed to survive the loss of a child. And Doreen, a couple months ago, lost her son, Josh, in an accident. And so I hope we're holding her in our hearts today. She's a rock that this organization depends on for so much of what we do, and that I depend on for so much. She's a treasure to our organization, and she's also a treasure personally, and a friend. And so I'm thinking of her while we're in this space. I also wanted to recognize that former board co-chair Susan Bruce passed away unexpectedly about a week ago. And so she is, most of us know her from her articles in the Conway Daily Sun or in the Union Leader, the Concord Monitor. She has been for decades a vocal advocate for every oppressed person in the state. I've been thinking about how, as a movement, we all need to step up our game to make up for her loss. So the last year and a half has been a tough time to get a handle on, especially the first half of it. Under President Trump, by the time I felt like I was beginning to understand the new thing that he was throwing at us, the new war he was threatening, it would have disappeared from the headlines. I'd get an e-alert out to call, and by the time the e-alert hit your inboxes, it was the situation had changed drastically. It was really chaotic. But I really commend our membership because you and the rest of our members who aren't with us right now called every time. I would get messages about what was said in phone calls to congressional offices, and we never stopped fighting, no matter how confusing or chaotic it got. We never gave up. And so it, and with the Corona pandemic, it's been a hard time to come up for air because there's been a lot going on, but it's definitely been a time to come up for air in new ways. A time to think differently about how we do our work. We have been unable to come together to do the rallies and demonstrations and public program we usually do. But at the same time, we created a pretty sizable library of peace and justice conversations. They can all be accessed on our website under the live stream tab. If you go down, everything that we have clearance from the speakers to share is right there under live stream, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 programs now that we have up on the website that you can view anytime. The board pursued during the first half of this year our strategic planning process, which we talked about at our last meeting, and we're well into the implementation of that. It's going to be guiding our work for the next 3 to 5 years. And in my opinion, as a staff person, as the guy who's getting paid to do this work, the board was truly heroic through this period. The amount of work that they did was humbling to me. And just the dedication that I saw out of our board members in this process was really, really inspiring. So we have a newly refined vision and mission. The new vision is we envision a future where international relations are based on cooperation instead of competition and conflict, and where mutual benefit and shared security lead to a more peaceful and just global community. And our new mission statement is New Hampshire Peace Action educates, mobilizes, and organizes to build a more peaceful and just future for all. It's not a radically different mission and vision statement than our old one. I don't think it significantly changes the beliefs that drive our work, and I really like where we came down with those statements. And I think that they encapsulate kind of our core belief as an organization that revolves around this idea that nobody should ever watch children be burned alive by missiles or shot in warfare. And that war itself, the practice of systematically annihilating other countries, is inherently immoral. Our 4 Democratic senators and congresspeople were proudly promising during election season to my kids in commercials on YouTube that they were going to bring home good jobs keeping America safe. And I hear that as a euphemism for killing brown children all over the world. And I think that those kids who are the victims of U.S. war and militarism need a voice, and that's really what our primary job is. So starting with that universal idea that every person is a human and worthy of living in safety and peace, we get to the specific by pushing our representatives to vote on specific legislation to save the lives we can. And then we do a lot of public education to try to shift our culture and make sure that we are seeing and living by those values and educating and creating space for that humanity that we're trying to bring forward to be seen by everyone. So our work is seen by a lot of folks as radical because it requires us to challenge racism. It requires us to challenge American exceptionalism. And it requires us to challenge our economic system, which depends on military Keynesianism for job creation. But the simple truth is, in this moment, our planet is too small to align around whatever makes the most money anymore. The world and the system need to change. And we are doing the work of helping that happen. Soon in New Hampshire, we're again going to have the chance to talk to nearly every aspirant head of state face to face during the 2 or 3 years leading up to the New Hampshire primaries. And I think we are resolute that we know that it's our job to make sure that nobody comes through New Hampshire without talking about the humanness of the people who die at the hands of the war machine. And I think that that'll make up a lot of our work for the coming period. And I think we're up to it. At present, I'm feeling both strong and grounded. I'm approaching 12 years with New Hampshire Peace Action. And I feel a lot better at this work than I did when I started. At the same time, I frequently experience that same feeling of powerlessness that I know that most of us feel when we're working against a political machine that is bipartisan, that's grounded in lobbyist campaign contributions and kickbacks, and that depends on military Keynesianism for local economic growth, and that politicians, regardless of party or affiliation, work within that system and see it as part of their job to bring those jobs home. So it's a system that's extremely resistant to change, but it's also a system that I think is recognizing that it needs to change and that it is starting to change. I know I'm taking a lot of heart in the voices of the group of women on Capitol Hill called the Squad, who are really speaking to the need to change the current political dynamic and how the system functions. And I'm hearing those voices, but also hearing voices like those being more and more often considered and in the mainstream of dialogue on places like New Hampshire Public Radio and in demonstrations and rallies around the state. So the last year has been quite busy, actually. And I'm not going to go through my whole staff report, but suffice it to say, you can check it all out on the website under our work. That'll give you kind of the last year of what we've been up to. One of the largest source of program, of course, would be our Monday Night Conversation series, which we have somewhere north of 25 hour-long conversations now on the website that you can check out. We've talked about protecting pollinators. We've talked about the Black Lives Matter movement. We've talked about Palestine. We've talked about environmental degradation, disability rights. We've talked about peace through schools and how just education affects peace. The conversations have been, we've had a lot of updates from our national on what our work ought to look like right now. And we're going to continue. Those conversations are every other Monday night, and I'm hoping most of you have been to at least a few of them. And if you go through the list on the website, you will no doubt find some that are of interest to you. And we've also done quite a bit of lobbying this year. There's been a lot of legislation that we've made calls on, written on. And we've had a few pieces of program outside the conversation series that have been very successful. It was hard for me to come up with a number of how many people we reached during Corona. I figure on a normal year, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 people attend some program that we've put on or get some sort of public education through New Hampshire Peace Action. That usually we reach about 1,000 people a year. And we have single programs that have gone way beyond that over the last year, being able to stream them online. We have, I think I stopped counting somewhere in the neighborhood of 14,000 views of our programs between YouTube and Facebook and live views on Zoom. So we've done a really great job of reaching out to people and getting this message of holding the humanity of those who would be made the other as a paramount value. So I'm going to jump in a little bit to what we're in for today. I just want to give a little snapshot of how the organization functions so that everybody on the call feels invited to find ways to work with us. So first, New Hampshire Peace Action is built from two legal entities. New Hampshire Peace Action Education Fund is a 501c3 tax-deductible educational organization. That organization is responsible for almost everything we do. This is the meeting of our 501c4 arm, New Hampshire Peace Action. That's supported by memberships. The donations are not tax deductible. And it's the primary function of that board is to do any political endorsements or campaigns that are purely lobbying, which we don't have any right now. But 501c3s can spend a small amount of time on lobbying, as long as most of what they're doing is public education work. And that's the model we follow. And the C4 board really only comes into play when we are when we need to consider a political endorsement. And so that board comes to our annual board retreats and this meeting. Sometimes I email to keep them in organizational direction discussions with the C3 board, but most of the day-to-day running is done by the C3 board. So if you're wanting to attend monthly meetings and be involved in kind of the meat and potatoes of running New Hampshire Peace Action, then drop an email to me or to C3 board, C, the number 3 board at nhpeaceaction.org to reach the C3 board. And if you're interested if you like watching elections and comparing different candidates on the issues and seeing if they are worth endorsing because they are more peaceful than their opponents, or I think sometimes we have used the standard better than the average Democrat on foreign policy to determine if we're going to make an endorsement. If that's something that interests you and you want to have a voice in that, the C4 board is the place for you. So we also have committees. If you want to be doing this work, we have an events committee, we have a fundraising committee, a membership committee. If you have skills that you want to put towards building a more peaceful future, there are ways we can slot you into New Hampshire Peace Action to make sure that we are making good use of your labor. And again, it is that volunteer labor of the boards that I think really makes this organization as powerful and as active as we are. Few highlights that I want to cover. We, over the last year, we agreed to help raise funds for the Ida Youth Camp in Palestine. This was done with a professional fundraising group who did most of the fundraising in New York City. That campaign raised about $280,000. So you'll see that in our books. And for an organization with an annual budget under $100,000 a year, an extra $280,000 in the budget sticks out like a sore thumb. So you probably notice it during the financial part of this meeting. So I want to, I just want to recognize how amazing our boards have been, how amazing our volunteers have been. And I want to specifically name Chris Ann Evanson and Bill Maddox and Amy Antonucci. And I really want to keep going on and on in naming the people who have just put tons and tons of time into making sure our strategic planning process went well and that the implementation is getting off to a strong start. But I'm just gonna name those 3 and say thank you. And I think that's gonna do it for the year in review from me. So I'll turn it over to Janet to introduce Chris Ann for the next part of the agenda.
Great, thank you so much, Will. A lot of exciting things have happened and are going to continue to. And Chris Ann, can you fill us in on where the strategic plan is taking us?
I can do that. Thanks very much, Will. That was unexpected, and I appreciate it. And I, of course, we're working on a great team. It's a lot of fun. It's more a social club than actual labor. So, so we amuse ourselves, and stuff happens. So here's what I have to report about our strategic plan. A year ago, we didn't even have a last draft in writing. So it's been a great 12 months. And I can report to you that things are proceeding in some ways better than we thought, especially given the fact that we did this during a pandemic. So, that's quite amazing. And we have kept meeting through the year. Will gave you some highlights on some of the events that we have implemented. and they are both part of our strategic plan. And because of them, we are more focused. So it's a very symbiotic nature. So some of the things over the last year are hopefully visible to you. And a lot of it, of course, is behind the scenes, but I feel so much better about the organization as a whole than I did a year ago. And I'm thrilled. So I just made a quick bulleted list of things that are new this year that we didn't have a year ago. So I just want to highlight some of them very briefly. Number one, at our winter retreat over the January period, I got together as part of our winter retreat, and with a group of us, we wrote through the winter a set of 12 papers that we've called the 12 pillars. They are areas that we normally work on, and the efforts of peace action are normally devoted to. So nuclear power issues, weapons issues, the Pentagon budget, Palestinian affairs, etc. So now we have 12 areas. What is different about that? We have a concrete statement that our organization collaborated on, which means that we can share with outsiders what our view is, and in turn, they know coming in, if they are speaking to our group, what our general position is. And that has helped to make more concrete the discussions that we have, the events that we host, and crucially for our internal workings, they are ready-made statements that we do not have to go and reinvent every time we apply for a grant. So I cannot tell you, this is life-changing. So we have a roadmap now for tracking the events that we engage in, because we have a checklist. You know, have we done as much on Palestine as we meant to in the last 12 months? We are finding already that there are some things we thought we'd really be focused on, but we haven't been. And so it helps us continuously refine our mission and vision. When we also have a tracking system for seeking funds. So now we know when there's a specific grant out there, we have something to say about it, and we can now point to events that fall into that category. So we have something to show for it. We have a communications plan. We didn't have that a year ago. That seems pretty basic, but we hadn't gone through the effort of pulling everything we think we know into something concrete. That means that we are in a much better position for planning how we advertise, how we respond to events that pop up. We have a whole host of steps to this plan, everything from brochures to our website to event announcements, press releases, you name it. We have also, this is number 4, we've made some updates to our webpage. You may have seen it on the Join and Donate tab. We have refined some of our donations and the software that we're using to both better define who our members are, who they can be, and to identify other groups that we should seek out in future. So we have included an upgraded membership and donations page. We have a membership plan now that we didn't a year ago, including actual targets for how many new members we'd like to seek out. So you'll hear from us more about that as the summer and the year progresses toward our fall fundraiser. Thanks to the efforts of Janet Zeller, we have a communications staff person job description. We don't know yet whether it's going to be an intern in the fall, a contractual engagement, or a new staff person. So to be determined a little bit by fundraising and a little bit by the refinement of our plan. So we will actually have on staff a communications person for the first time. And our last big one that Will mentioned briefly is that we have a fundraising plan that we didn't have a year ago. So I feel much better about the sustainability of New Hampshire Peace Action in general. You will remember, hopefully, from last fall, our fall fundraiser raised about $8,000. So it more than met our goal. We had, right after that, we wrote a grant application for $10,000 per year. It's a 3-year grant. And we have succeeded. So we have that money coming in too. We had a successful Giving Tuesday last November. We had an end of year campaign with a surprise, more sizable than usual donation at the end of last year and into the January period. So we had an end of year campaign that was a little bit better than usual. You are seeing in your mailbox, if you haven't already, the mid-year campaign on the heels of the New Hampshire Gives statewide, where we also participated again this year. We also had an internal match during the New Hampshire Gives. So if your donation was not matched in New Hampshire Gives, it may have been matched in the internal Peace Action summer campaign. So in short, it's happening. And if that wasn't glossy enough, we also have landed a new relationship with classy.org. They are a fundraising platform. So a bit like the Action Network that you use to RSVP for this event, classy.org is a platform known to more younger cohorts. It is a software platform that is much more streamlined, and I have had the pleasure of working with it with other organizations. So you will see soon, such as for our fall fundraiser, an ability to register for that event, purchase tickets online. We'll do some fundraising with it this year. But it is going to update and streamline the way that we do some fundraising. And it crucially, to me, it saves a little on the work of Doreen, because the more that we can do in the software part of it, the less labor intensive it has to be for her and Will. So, so that's the great stuff about our strategic plan. I'm very happy that it's progressed this much. We are, of course, not finished. You know, we're just getting warmed up in the first year, but it's been a good year. Here's where I would love some help if you are able to do it. We have, I think, probably 3 basic needs here. Number one, if you can share the events that Doreen and Amy, et cetera, are posting on Facebook or in their emails, that will help. Because the more and different kinds of people we can have among us, the better word spreads, especially if you have folks that you know who are not necessarily in our age cohort. One of the sustainability issues we have is that we all know each other, but there's a real generation gap in our membership. And yet, with social movements of late, there's plenty of opportunity to expand our membership. So that's number one. Number two, I'm looking specifically for 3 volunteers. If you have any spare time, maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes a week, that's that small, if you would be willing to help us write the odd paragraph here and there. It is something I could do. It's just a little much right now. So if you would help us spread the load, we would love that. Number 2, we would love some new energy on some of our committees, because a year into these Monday evening events, it would be great to have new people in our mix to help us plan, because we all have the same, set of contacts. And a year in, we're stretching to make sure that series stays dynamic for everybody. And then number 3, some virtual elves for our fall fundraiser coming up. Just a little extra labor help would be great for behind the scenes things. And then thirdly, we are pushing into new demographic areas. So think things like the New Hampshire Youth Movement, the New Hampshire Young Democrats, other cohorts. If you know no one under the age of 30, I would really love to talk to you in the next 30 days. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there and turn it back over to Janet. I'd be happy if anybody has any questions about the strategic plan. I'd be happy to entertain them. Unless, Janet, you think we should move on. I'm not sure how much time I took.
I think we're running a little tight on time, but I know Chris-Ann is great at communicating. So feel free to send her an email. If you're unsure of her email, you can always send it through to New Hampshire Peace Action and they will get it over to Chris-Ann. Chris-Ann, thank you for that exciting report. So much to look forward to. Will, how about financials?
Both Greg Heath, the C4 board treasurer, and Bill Maddox, our C3 board treasurer, Greg is in Alaska, and Bill had a memorial service for a dear friend who passed. So neither can be with us. So I'm going through the financials, which of course is not ideal, but it'll have to do for today. So I'm starting out with our C4 arm. Again, this is the much smaller arm of New Hampshire Peace Action. It's the part of the organization that does membership. Whitney, did you have a question?
Can you make it bigger, Will?
Sure. I can probably, let's see if.
Just plus, plus, plus.
Yeah, let's see what I can do. There we go. How's that? Right now we've got 21,000 in the bank. I believe this number is an error that we haven't been able to clear yet, that 86. However, we do have, we definitely don't have any accounts with AG Edwards anymore. So, but we do have about 19,000 in the C4 endowment account. So we're, it's important to remember this is the smaller entity. This is a better financial position than we've seen in a little over a decade for the C4. So we've got a little extra play there, which is a nice feeling because it's more flexible money than C3 money. It allows us to do more lobbying and be a little more political in our work. So I like those flexible dollars, and having a little bit stockpiled also gives us money to pursue the strategic plan membership growth plans. So moving to where we are for the year, and again I'll enlarge that. We brought in 11,000 so far this year. This 2,000 is management services. We'll have to pay some more in management services because, for instance, Doreen and I organizing this meeting, that has to be C4 money because this is a membership meeting. So there will be some more management services coming over. But that's really the only expense other than the membership mailing that we've had to worry about in the C4 so far. So we are hoping that there is a good nest egg to put towards a membership growth campaign through the strategic plan. Before I move to the C3, does anybody have any questions specific to these rather simple, it's simple financials because it's a really small part. It's the small arm of our organization, and there's most everything is run through management services through the C3. So my paycheck comes from the C3, and then there's reimbursement from the C4 for the C4 time that I'm spending. So I'm not seeing any.
Would you raise your hand?
You could raise your hand or put it in the chat. And I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to continue on to the C3 financials. We're not going to be able to make those quite as big. The C3 currently has about 71,000 in the checking account. I'd say, you know, that's really good for this time of year. The year of Corona was good. It didn't severely affect our fundraising. We did get a PPP loan, a Paycheck Protection Plan loan. We did get a grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, and so we're in pretty healthy shape right now. Again, for those who aren't accustomed to financial sheets, a balance sheet is a snapshot of how much money you have in this moment. So this is just looking at what we've got in the bank, what we have in the endowment, which is this number here. The 34,000 is what we have in our endowment. And that's, for emergencies. And you can see that where it came from down under liabilities and equity. So moving on to our financials so far for the year, we have brought in a total of 62,000 so far. And we're budgeted to bring in 104,000 throughout the course of the year. That is not including, if we go down to the bottom, and let me make that bigger again. So if we go down to the bottom, you'll see we put the Ada refugee camp money down here so that it doesn't interfere with the main picture up above. You'll see that our total expenses, according to QuickBooks, is 352, and that's because of this 281,000 that we sent to the Ida youth camp, and they work with mostly orphaned Palestinian refugees and do medical work, food, water, shelter, the basic needs for children is the basic premise of that work. We are, if you look over here, this is the percentage of what we had budgeted for the year versus what we're at actually. So these numbers are indicative of about how far through the year we are, right? We're about halfway through the year, and you've got numbers that show that. We're gonna have to raise about another 25 or 30,000 this year, which if we're to make budget, and if we have a match active until August 15th. So if you're able to give, this is a great window. You get a dollar for dollar match, and that'll get us a good part of the way there. The fall fundraiser is going to be hybrid, in person, and with a remote option. We're hoping to make 9,000 on that, and if we hit all these targets, we should be able to keep going, and in theory hire a part-time social media person, so that we can get active in spaces like TikTok and all the places where younger people are. I think one of the things that our strategic plan showed was that we are active in spaces where older white people are active, and that is probably a big part of why our membership is mostly older and mostly white. And so we're hoping to expand that out, and we're going to need extra capacity to do that. So happy to take any questions on the financials if there are any. Feeling like if we can keep going like we have been for the last few years, we can keep going for a while and keep doing this work.
What's the end date on the matching
The end date
funds?
it's August 15th.
That was a question in chat. If there are other questions, you can pop them in chat, or you can raise your hand. So it's best, so is it best to specify C3 or C4?
So if you are not concerned about a tax deduction, it is always better to specify that you want it to go to the C4, because those dollars are more flexible. We are always allowed to transfer money from the C4 to the C3. That's always something that's okay. So if the C3 is running low and we have money in the C4, we can always borrow from the C4 or take from the C4 to do the bulk of our work, but the C4 dollars are more flexible. So even if it's a C3 fundraising campaign, we would always prefer that you write in the memo line C4, not education fund, something like that, so that we know that we can use that you don't need your tax deduction, and we can use that money more flexibly. There's no reason why we'd ever prefer C3 dollars over C4 dollars, because everything a C3 dollar can do, a C4 dollar can do that too. So it's If you need a tax deduction, prefer a tax deduction, send it to the C3 and we will put it to good use.
I see no further questions, Will. Oh, here comes one. Remember, if you have to take money from your IRA, you can make a direct qualified charitable contribution to the C4. And Marcia says, thank you.
Well, thank you all.
I do not see any further questions. So does that conclude the financial report? Will?
It does if there are no more questions.
Seeing none. John Lamperti. John,
All right, thank
John's
you.
the chair
Yeah.
of the C4 board, and he's going to take over on the elections piece.
Hello, everybody. I have a little off business comment. I've been trying to manage the noise by turning my mute button off and on, and I seem to do it exactly wrong. I turned it on just a little while ago, just in time to have a very loud contribution from our wonderful little dog. And then I turned it off again. But I would like just to mention that she's sort of in the program. Her name is Emma G, which is, the G is for Goldman. I hope you all recognize what that's about. Anyway, Emma G may contribute as long as I have to have the mute button not turned on. All we're going to do now is elect the board for the C4 branch of the organization. I used to have a sort of set speech. It was rather long at first and got a little shorter every year as I perfected it, about the difference between the C3 and the C4 and how they are really related. And Will has basically said all that needs to be said, I think, on that subject, so I won't go through that again. We are the C4 organization. The membership, this is a membership organization. The members elect the board of directors. The C3 is, in some theoretical sense, is a separate organization, but of course the two are very closely related. And the two board of directors for the two overlaps too. Not too much, we hope, but they do overlap. Okay, our current board of directors for the C4 organization consists of me, John Lamperti, and I have been on this board for many ages. I don't know how many, but probably too many. We can discuss that later. Our treasurer is Greg Heath, Will Thomas, Nancy Burke, Janet Simon, from whom we have heard, Chris Marion, and Curtis Smith are the members of the current C4 board. And I would like to propose that they be elected, or I should say approved to continue. But we can discuss some changes also, but I think perhaps we can do this in two separate parts. First, let's see if these folks on the current board can be approved to continue until the next membership meeting. I guess that takes a motion from someone. I hope that will happen. Can somebody make such a motion?
So moved.
And second? Somebody will second.
Second.
Thanks a lot. Is there discussion of it? Is there discussion of this? Let me repeat. We can have discussion about other members, and we will have in just a moment, but about the motion to elect the folks that I just named to continue as on the board of the C4 for another year. Chris-Ann, did you want to say something about that? Or, well, nobody seems to have a lot to discuss, so shall we vote on it? Could you all just say aye, and then ayes if you approve, or raise your hand?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? And abstaining? I think it's reasonable to conclude that that's an approval for the continuation of these folks on this board. Thank you very much. Now, part two, new members, additions. Let me say two things before I ask for volunteers. One is that I have been the chair of this board sort of by default for many, many years. And I would like to announce that after this meeting is over, the members of the board, the folks I just named, plus any new members, can have a discussion about electing a different chairman. And so it doesn't have to be me any longer. I am not president for life of the New Hampshire C4 board. Second comment is that we have discussed with someone that he join the board, and I hope that he will agree to do that. That's Jeremy Love, who I hope is here someplace. We've had a little conversation about it, but I would like to propose that he join the board as one additional member. There's no problem about the number of people who are members of the board. Jeremy, do you want to say something about that? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're willing
I
to?
actually, well, I thought about what Will had emailed me, and I don't feel like my input is going to be very useful, just because I can't find it within myself to agree with anything our congressional delegation does right now. So like I would be a constant no on endorsing anybody, frankly. So but I just don't see how that's useful when, you know, the way Will framed it, like the best that we can get, we should endorse kind of thing. And I just don't really jive with that personally.
Well, let me argue with you a little bit.
Okay.
I think the fact that you are likely to be very tough on endorsing anybody. Let's see, we don't have Barbara Lee living in our district, I'm afraid.
Yeah, or Mark Pocan.
But I don't think that means you shouldn't be on this board, because I think you'd be a useful person in the discussion. And besides, there may be other issues of lobbying issues that come up for the C4 part of the organization that are not just about endorsements. So I hope you'll consider letting us vote for you if you're it's not going to take a whole lot of your time, I assure you.
Well, I mean, I you know, the fact that I at some point will be on the national board of Peace Action, and I mean, there was that argument that the connection between the two is helpful. Yeah, I'll give it a whack. I mean, I guess I can always step down at some point if I feel
okay.
Like
Sure.
my curmudgeon-y attitude isn't doing anything for the group.
Thanks a lot. Having heard all that, I hope that people will consider a motion to add Jeremy to the list of.
I would so
we
move.
just voted for.
Can you hear me? I would so move for Jeremy to be added to the board. Will Thomas here.
Second, Whitney Howard.
Thank you very much.
I would also add that at times I think we need agitators. Remember that term? So Jeremy, welcome aboard.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can always abstain in terms of any potential or possible endorsement. So that exists.
Thanks very much, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Can we have a vote to approve motion to add Jeremy?
Janet, what were you saying?
I said, thank you, Jeremy. And don't worry, you're in good company with how you feel at this point.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, that does make me feel better.
We'll take that as a acceptance, I hope. And the last part, of course, is that we can add other people too. And I don't believe anybody has contacted Will or me about wanting to join the board. Will, is that true? Will Hopkins?
You're on mute, buddy.
Okay, but anyone here is interested in volunteering and wanting to join the board? Would you like to put yourself forward? Don't be bashful. We can and then have a little discussion about why you should be on the board and make a decision. Would there someone else like to volunteer to add themselves? Join this group? Okay, well, I don't see a lot there. So I assume that now we have made an official decision. This is a legal matter. We've made an official decision that the people named before, 7 people, plus Jeremy, are now the board of directors of New Hampshire Peace Action, C4 branch. All set? All done? I hope so. Thank you very much. And back
Thank
to
you, John.
John, thank you. You might want to share with Daryl Perry afterwards. He asked, what are the duties and responsibilities? He asked that just after the nominations closed, the election closed. So you might want to get to him and share that piece with him. Thank you, Daryl. Okay. We had received no resolutions prior to the meeting, and to be voted on at the meeting, they do have to be received in writing so that they can be distributed and reviewed by those who will be voting on them. So okay. Daryl tried speaking, but no one heard him, he said. So we're at resolutions, and under resolutions, as I say, there were none brought forward. Was there anyone who had any concerns about a resolution?
Yeah, is it too late to submit a resolution? I mean, I can bring a topic up for discussion, I suppose, if that's permissible.
Well, the problem is we do have to have it in writing.
Yeah.
And so it would not be possible at this point.
Well,
can I just mention that to everyone?
Can I just mention the fact that Veterans for Peace had has a national project to it's called Reclaim Armistice Day, and from the intent of Armistice Day, which was to promote peace throughout the world, and as you probably all know, during the post-World War II. The Cold War, a number of veterans groups said, well, let's have a different holiday. And so Veterans Day was born on June 1st, 1954, with President Eisenhower signing that. But some of us feel that that intent actually has led to basically kind of a glorification of the celebration of the military and war and militarism. So we have a project to reclaim it. And some of us are contacting mayors in New Hampshire and town selectmen, town managers. We have a template. So I guess I'm saying if anybody's interested in maybe doing further work on this, please contact me and I can send out a template for contacting your local officials. And it probably would amount to something like, observing November 11th as Veterans Day / Armistice Day.
Thank you, Will.
In New Hampshire, we have Martin Luther King Day, but we also have / Civil Rights Day. That's
thank
still
you,
on
Will.
the books. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And of course, folks can always bring things to the Board of Directors' attention if they would like action from the board in between annual meetings and opportunities for resolutions. I think that does it. We're running a very tight on time, Will, but I'm going to give it to you. That concludes our business meeting.
Thank you. And sorry we ran so low on time. It's hard to know how fast things are going to go on Zoom. And I was telling some of the early attenders that well, we confirmed last week with our speakers that they'd be here. I sent the link this morning and got a response about an hour ago saying, thanks for the link. Looking forward to discussion tomorrow at 8 p.m. our time. And that was and I sent back an email immediately saying it's today, an hour from now. Hope you'll still be with us. But we had a break scheduled in here, and I don't see either of our speakers in the chat. So unfortunately, I can't confidently say that we're going to move into the next part of our meeting without having heard back from our speakers. But I would like to give the break that we had scheduled. So I'm going to hang out here. If folks want to take a break, check back in 10 minutes. Hopefully we will have Ellie and Osama here and can do the Combatants for Peace portion. And if not, you will have deepest apologies from me that we failed to deliver the program we promised.
So can we call them on the phone?
I don't have phone numbers. I only have email addresses. I could get in touch with Beth Schumann from American Friends for Combatants for Peace. She might have a way of getting a hold. And I may do that during this 10
You're
minute
tracking that down, Will. Just let me share that Will Thomas, Chris Ann Evanson said in the chat, don't forget too, you can always add events and notes to the list that we make every week for the Friday e-blast that Doreen sends out. So we do have that other avenue to get important messages out.
Okay.
So
I'm going to stop the live
take it.
stream for now, and we'll reconnect in 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. See you in